Welcome, 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 everybody. Hello, this is Coach Les and Sujata Against All Odds live podcast. Thank you all for being here today. We are about to get started. And the fun thing today, wow, I can't even find my little book here. My co-host is Sujata, who has accumulated a wealth of experiences during her life, leading to insights and knowledge that cannot be coached or taught in a class. She's a mother, a wife, a journalist, a consultant, an activist, a leader, and a businesswoman domestically and internationally. In sharing her story, Sujata strives to provide readers of all backgrounds in any part of the world with real life examples on how to deal with the unpredictable nature of everyday life. And today we have a really, really fun topic, and I'm super excited to share about it. And the fun thing is, I'm going to send it to right here because I need to be able to read it. Husbands and how to honor our wives, sharing the areas of training and development that are pertinent to today's business, family, faith, and speaking about it through integrity and against all odds. So here we are. We are ready to rock and roll. And it looks like today that we're going to have no video for Sujata. You just get to see my smiling, shiny face.
Which is, I think, a better one. Okay, carry on.
Well, that's all a personal judgment. And okay, Michael, I know you have your hand up, and I'm trying to bring you up here. Maybe there you are. You are up. Okay, perfect. Welcome to the members on Clubhouse that are up on stage. Thank you so much for joining us, and those of you that are new to the room and have Noel, Bentley, and Emmanuel, and followed by speakers Shay. Thank you. And for those of you that are here listening on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter, thank you for joining us today. This is going to be a very, very fun, maybe even a little controversial to have this conversation to speak about and share about with husbands.
Hey, Coach.
Yes. Hi, Michael. What's up?
I might have a little bit of difficulty of sometimes connecting. It kind of dropped me at the last one. So just bear with me for a little while.
Michael, trust me, we never hold anything that Clubhouse does against anybody. It's the people that have no patience that do that. And I think that everybody that's on stage now has been around Clubhouse long enough to know that there's a lot of stuff that happens that is what we call glitchy. So you've got lots of room for error, Michael.
Just checking.
Okay. All right. And one of the reasons I wanted to delve into this topic is we hear a lot through a lot of social media. We see a lot of wives, a lot of ladies that get on stages and talk about relationships and talk about being a powerful, significant other. And my sense is that most men don't like to talk about that stuff. Most men aren't willing to get up and share their breakdowns, breakthroughs, to own their imperfections, as if somehow, if we don't talk about it, it doesn't really exist. And so therefore the breakdowns don't exist, the breakthroughs don't exist. We'll just keep it quiet and move through the way we move through. And what I see that happens with that all the time is that we end up judging and assessing each other, forgetting that we have a partner, that if we are in communication with that partner, miracles are available. breakthroughs are available. And in the world of integrity and workability in a relationship, we can create miracles by that magic thing called speaking, conversing, listening, learning, and working together with one of my favorite words, compromise. So I'd love to hear from my co-host her thought on this topic to get us started, because I'm sure it's going to be fiery. Over
What
to
a
you,
topic!
Sujata.
What a topic to choose first thing in the morning for me. And no, I liked what you said. That's a very reasonable, logical summation of a topic which can be fiery. Uh, and I'm very excited how you're going to take this forward. As far as I'm concerned, I wish that the men were listening to you and would at least start thinking on some of the things that you said. Because the word compromise itself is a very fiery, debatable thing when it comes to husbands and wives as to who's to make the compromise, who's to do the compromise, and why. And at the end of the day, then that leads to a lot of problems. That's what I would like to start with.
All right. And I think one of the fun things that would be a great opportunity here for me to, for us to look at right away is to define the word compromise and to make sure that as we go into this conversation, we're standing on the same island in the world of communication. And I'm going to my friend and nemesis sometimes, Google, and I've typed in compromise. And it's always fun
Compromise.
to hear her say the word. So here we are pronouncing.
Compromise.
There we go. And there's a couple of different definitions that I'm going to share here. One, of course, is from Wikipedia. To compromise is to make a deal between different parties where each party gives up part of their demand. Oh. In arguments, compromise is a concept of finding agreement through communication, through a mutual acceptance of terms, often involving variations from an original goal or original desires. I love it. That is beautiful. Now, in the dictionary from Oxford Languages, an agreement, a compromise is an agreement or settlement of a dispute that is reached by each side making concessions, an ability to listen to two sides in a dispute and devise a compromise acceptable to both. Okay. The verb compromise is to settle a dispute by mutual concession and accept standards that are lower than is desirable. So when we compromise, both people are coming to a place where if you were to ask them, it's not 100% of what they want. And they're compromising and saying, well, if we each give a little, we could come to a mutual compromise where we get each, say, we each get 50% of what we want. And we walk away with a whole part. Looks like a good compromise to me. It's like somebody put the apple pie on the table and you both want it, and you cut it down the middle, one gets half, the other gets half. There we go. And some people may be saying or thinking, well, coach, that's awfully idealistic. That's awfully surreal in the fact that when you're saying that, both people are losing half of the pie. And for me, it immediately brings me back to the cup, and the cup that is half full versus half empty. And are you a person that is looking at the cup being half full or half empty? And they say, the proverbial people out in the world, that when the cup is full in the middle, an optimist says it's half full. And a pessimist says that it is half empty. Now, one of the things that I love to play in that game of the cup is when the cup is completely empty, I say that it's full of possibility, because now it has space to accept 100% of whatever comes its way. Now, for me, that's outside the box thinking. Now, let's go back to this analogy of the pie. We each have half of the pie, and we're each not as happy as we could be because we wanted the whole pie. So if I handed the whole pie over to my significant other, now I have no pie. How could I look at that in a positive way? Well, for one thing, is it possible for me to get a second pie? Second, is it possible that it's not this pie this time that I get, but next week I get the pie? So there are ways to compromise, I believe, where we don't have to cut something or lose anything in the moment. We may be losing, as some would say, the pie next week, but we don't have that pie. And if we create the opportunity to have the whole pie in the future week, I think that makes a huge area of possibility to be a wonderful compromise, and we can still have a complete pie. So with that, I want to check in with our audience and chat with our audience and see. Hey, Michael, I'm the one muting you, Michael, because you make a lot of noise when you're off the mute off the microphone, Michael, and that noise goes out to the internet into the podcast. So I just want to let you know, when you come off mute, there's noises associated that's going into the mic, and that's why I keep muting you, just to be cognizant of that. And we'll get to you in just a moment. So Sujata, what are your thoughts about the pie and the cup analogy?
Very well said. Because while you were talking, I was thinking, and I would have put it also somewhat similar. Because look at it this way: I give you the whole pie, and I don't mind giving it to you. Maybe I don't want that pie. Maybe I want the pie next week. And maybe I'm happy to give you the whole pie. So it doesn't mean that I've lost out on anything. That's one. As far as the cup is concerned, yes, an empty cup full of possibilities. And when it comes to half of this thing, then let me put it that way. Maybe I want that half only. I don't want more than half a glass. What then? So, compromise is about, I think, a choice that you make, sometimes of acceptance and sometimes of giving up. because the others may matter more, or the other may matter more. And there are various ways to look at it.
I love it. And now I'm going to pass the mic over to Jeanette. How are you doing, Jeanette? Are you able to chat?
Yes, I am able to chat. I dropped my phone.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting that the different analogies you presented as you were talking about compromise. I'm thinking about, okay, in a relationship, yeah, with friends, we always compromise. But in a relationship, it's kind of different because there's a little bit more closeness. There's a little bit more reading into each other. And if I know what you like, hey, I'll give you the whole pie. I don't need to eat a whole pie. If I like the pie and the person really knows I like the pie, they're not going to eat the whole pie. They're just going to automatically give me a piece of the pie. There's this trust, give and take type of thing going on. And I think that's where that's kind of an ideal relationship. Maybe it's not realistic, but I think that in relationships, you just kind of read more into each other, and you kind of have that give and take where you don't have to have these agreements or disagreements. The only time you do is when you have ideas that differ in a relationship, in ones that I've seen, because I'm single. I really can't relate to this, but in the ones that I've seen that really work, it's not about really compromising. It's about looking at being realistic at what's being discussed, or creating goals that are kind of together and in sync, and accomplishing things together. So you're looking out for the good of the relationship, not necessarily yourself. And one of the things I notice is there's a lot more we in the discussion. Here's what we prefer. Here's what we like. Instead of, I don't want that. I don't like it. I don't need it. It's more like, I don't prefer it. And the other person says, oh, that's right. You don't like it. How about if we do this? And I don't think that's really a compromise. I think that's just creating an environment where you're in unison. You're doing things together and sharing, basically. That's why, I'm single, Coach. I haven't been in a relationship in a long time.
Yes, but so hold on a second, Jeanette. You may be single, but remember, all of us have been in relationships. So I love that when people say, well, I'm single. It's like, that's okay. Because yes,
I have been in relationships. They haven't been ideal relationships.
Perfect. And when you look at the idealness, what do you think was missing in this conversation about compromise?
There wasn't we. It was all about I want, I need. And if I don't get it, then I'm just not going to do it. It was that type of relationship.
Yep. And
so there wasn't any sharing. There wasn't, it was very one-sided. It was all take. And there was no discussions. And if there were, it was just, this is how I want it, and so a lot of the burden is just on one side, and there's just a lot of work. Relationships are a lot of work with regards to staying in sync. It should not be a lot of work in maintaining harmony.
Yes,
and that's how I see it. As long as there's harmony in it, take the pie, It's not my favorite pie. We'll share anyway, They're still going to share a piece of it no matter what. You want a bite? You want a piece? No, go ahead and have the whole pie. No, at least have a piece. Okay. And then there's harmony. That's how I look at it. And that's the ideal relationship. And I've seen it. So I know they're there those are the kind of the models I look at. Like, that's how it's supposed to be. Okay. And is it perfect? No. There are disagreements, but like I said, it's based on ideals and not based on the needs of each other. It'd be like, here's how I think about something, and here's the other person thinks, and it's an adversarial thought and conversation, which is healthy. You want to have different ideas because that's what allows you to communicate your differences. It allows you to see each other's point of view. It allows you to see how each other's thinking is. And when you're trying to build that harmony, you know what battles to pick. You know what's going to put a strain in the day. If you want harmony in the day, you're not going to bring up a topic that you're going to have a heated conversation about. You want harmony. See, you're going to be mindful of those things, and you're never disrespectful. It's just that sometimes you just want to have complete harmony. You want to have a lot of laughter in the day. You don't want to have seriousness. So you're more mindful of it, and there is more harmony in that. And when it comes to, how about this? When you mentioned, the drinking and the water, how about this? How about if we use straws? And I go first, and I drink the whole glass. And my partner says, why'd you drink the whole glass? And I think my part was on the bottom. So I drank it all. There's different ways to look at it, right? I put the straw in, and I'm going to drink it all because my part, no matter what, everything goes to the bottom, and it's all mine. And so it depends on what you use when you drink that glass. It depends on what you use when you eat that pie. And it depends on how you share. Always how you share, or your way of sharing. So always think about that. I don't always say, well, I'm single, I wouldn't know. I've seen, and I do know, and it does work. And when people say that never happens, it does happen. Relationships are a lot of work.
I agree.
The harmony.
Yep. Uh-oh. You hit a dead spot, Jeanette.
Am I back yet?
Yep, you're back.
Yeah, and that's what it is, right? I mean, every couple of days, well, I'm in the hot seat today, but your partner is just thinking about it. You got to give them that space. It's okay. There's that period where you have to give them that silent time, and everything works out. That's how relationships are, and just maintain that harmony. That's my take right now. I'll share the mic back, Coach.
Thank you. And I think, one of the things that I liked about what you said that I want to draw attention to is doing things in unison. Finding out about, so here's where I'm leveling it up on from my end, is finding out about the aggravations and learning. I've got 4 years of marriage with Kristen, and I'm still learning things that she doesn't like. And as I learn them, my goal is to, avoid those or remove those from what I call my automation. Because I think there are things that we do that we don't even know are aggravating to our significant other, because it's never been a big deal. And then our significant other doesn't say anything because, well, is this really a big deal? Should I really say something about it, quote unquote? And I look at it as, if we talk about it, if we have a conversation, I may go, well, I don't need to do that. I can agree to that. How come you've waited 2 years to tell me? And it's like, well, it never really came up until I realized that how it was bothering me, or, scratching that, or itching, an itch that I couldn't scratch. And I think that's part of the fun of discovering what it is to be in a relationship, is learning that. What are those quote unquote itches that we have, the relationships have, that need, quote unquote, need to be scratched, or rather than need, will benefit the relationship in a very positive, workable way when we scratch, and learning that. And it, for me, it's I happen to be one of those people that loves the human condition and playing the human game. So for me, it's always a learning issue. And I know that sometimes it's like, Les, are you always going to take stuff apart? Do you always have to like dissect stuff? And I go, yep, that's just who I am. That's what makes it fun, and I love making a difference. And so part of that game for me is finding out what are those aggravations. It's one of the things that, and you've heard me talk about this, I think everybody on the stage, maybe Michelle might not have, but one of my least favorite words in the English dictionary, in the English language, when it's used to answer a question, is when somebody would, if you were to go and say to your significant other and say, hey, how would you like to go to a movie tonight? And they say, sure. SURE. And I'm like, what is that, a yes or a no? Are you saying sure because I want to go, so you're kind of just going, all right, I'll go and put up with it? Or are you saying sure for the simple fact that you really don't know what is, you haven't really thought about what it is you want? And for me, that word is, it's probably one of the most aggravating words that I could hear, because it carries so much unknown with it. So I'd love to continue to Joey. How are you today, sir?
Doing good. I'm gonna stay on track, but I'm gonna maybe kind of just go off to the right a little bit. I love the analogy of the pie, but I'll share a couple things when we're talking about relationships. And stop me at any time if I misunderstood. I think the analogy of the pie, you're saying that 50% is my pie, a side of the pie, 50%, and in an ideal world that could possibly work, but I don't like that. And I'll give you a couple of examples that kind of that wouldn't work for me in my marriage that happens in other marriages. I said it would work for me. Maybe it works for others, but it would work for me. I'm not a huge fan of separate checking accounts. Like my in-laws, both in-laws now, same in-laws, but they got divorced and remarried, and they're both set up the same way. Maybe the second marriage could kind of get it a little bit, but the first marriage, they're married for 30 years, and they were together, but they were separate. Like their finances were separate. My wife's dad had his own house. Not his own house. He had his own checking account. She had her money, and my wife and I, we have found that's best for us. That's not how. I don't know. We've never done that, and it wasn't because we didn't like the way they did it. We just felt more comfortable doing it the way we did it. That's for us, and other things too. And I think you might see this a lot more in maybe second marriages. And once again, look, I'm not saying this is wrong, but not taking the last name of your husband. I don't know. I just kind of feel like I don't know what that's trying to say. Now, that's not what we're talking about. But for me, it kind of seems like, if we're going to talk about those kind of examples that I just gave, if there's a pie there, and to me, it seems like if that's the path, or if that's the way you chose to go, to me it seems like you are going to be like, no, that's half mine, that's half yours, and that's half mine. And I for me, I don't see how that's healthy. I'll give you an example. And Sujata, you said you'll give the whole pie. I love it. An example that I can give, another analogy is, and this came out of me asking a friend about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when America was in an extent we still are, and in fact, it's been like this for the last at least 100 years since the Civil War and then beyond, prior to that. Who matters? Right, that was the big thing. Well, I matter, you matter, we all matter, right? And I asked him to help me navigate my way through, and make sense. He's African American, and it was a great conversation. And one of the things he said to me was, "Hey, I understand your life matters. Hey, I understand you want half the pie. Hey, I understand half the pie is yours. Technically, we split the money, and you get your half, and I get my half. But right now, my house is burning down. I need the other half. I need the help." So I think that from the way I see this, Coach, is you have a pie. Yeah, you can divide it in half, but who needs it the most, and how can I help you? I think that's I think that's the best place to be in a marriage. Sometimes I'll need help. Sometimes you'll need help. And you got to be in a position to be able to understand that, and there needs to be that willingness. So I hope that made sense, and I'll yield it back to you guys.
I think that's great, Joey, because once again, that's a compromise. It's knowing and seeing and looking at who is got the greatest need at the moment.
Agreed.
And that,
agreed. Yeah.
it's almost like a good another analogy, because I love doing these analogies, would be who holds the door open for who?
Well, I mean, society says a man should always hold the door open, but not if the man is carrying 100 pounds of tomatoes or something. I say tomatoes because I'm in food business, right? I mean,
yep.
I mean, obviously, whoever needs the door to be held, right?
Exactly. Why do we have to? I mean, yes, I try and run ahead, or I'll hold, like today we went into Perkins restaurant and I held the door open and I saw there was some women coming out. So I went, whoop, and I walked back out to hold the door open. And then we found out they weren't leaving yet. So we went in, and one of the ladies go, "That was really nice," as I walked by. And I said, it's respect. For me, I would have done it if it were men leaving. Right? So it had nothing to do with any not being equal or anything like that. It just had to do with the respect in the moment, because I could make their life much easier by continuing to hold the door and letting them out. So we didn't have to change energy and hand the door to them. I could just continue to hold it. So for me, I liked some coaching that I got back from the personal training and development company that I worked with. Many times people say, well, it's 50-50. And my answer to that is, no, it's not. It's 100-100. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, you want to be putting in 100% of your energy all the time, not 50%. Oh, well, that's just a technicality less. I'm like, no, it's not. See, if you're thinking you're only doing 50%, do you really believe you're going to be at full capacity putting in energy into this situation? And that's where I think it gets really exciting to do the work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And if you allow me to add another little nugget, and
of course,
and I want to stay on course, but I want to kind of add another thought. We talk about compromise, talk about relationships, and we're talking about right now we're specifically talking about our spouses. I heard of someone sharing. I was listening to the radio. It was years ago. I was married already for probably about 10 years, so 18 years ago, perhaps 20 years. And I remember him saying, so often we say we're single and we're pursuing or we're out to look for happiness, right? We're going to find a spouse. We're looking for happiness. And he said, no, change that. We're out to looking to give happiness. And I think when we're in a relationship, it almost ties back into your legacy room when you mention what Zig Ziglar says. If we're willing, I think it's if we're willing to help, or if we help enough people get what they want, right?
Yep.
We'll get what we need, or vice versa. So I love the idea of on the pursuit of happiness, but man, sometimes we need to shift that a little bit and be like, because I'm a firm believer of pursuing and making sure that ourselves are in a good position, in a good spot in our mind and in our lives. But I think that the really big step here is, especially with our spouses, is we need to be in that position of, I didn't go out to seek happiness. I went out to be happiness to somebody. And I think that's an important piece of this conversation for relationships and compromising.
Huge, Joey, huge. Because here's the thing. If you're not, I've often heard of this from the psychological aspect. If you're not complete, don't go looking for somebody to complete you. Right. I think you said that beautifully. Yeah, bang. The quote from Zig Ziglar is, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. Yeah, a very powerful statement.
Yeah, good quote.
Yeah, and I think, that was his philosophy.
And I'll share one more thing. We were talking marriage, and I'm a guy that's been married 20 years to the same beautiful wife. We have to be so mindful that relationship and that mindset, and if we're gonna walk around and live by that quote, the spouse, wife needs to be the one that has to know and really. And you want to talk about integrity? We talk. Look, when I was a student pastor, and this is from past experiences, I found myself in a position where I was, in many times, helping many people, and there was some neglect. And I think my wife was like, "Wow, Joe has the ability to help all these people, and where is he?" So I learned after some time, probably not until maybe 10 years, unfortunately, that I could be this great guy to so many other people. But we've got to make our spouse. So if you're gonna live out that Zig Ziglar quote, it has to be the spouse first. Really, at the end of the day, she's the only one that matters anyway. She has to believe. When you say that, she has to fully believe that you mean that. And I'll yield it back to you, Coach.
Well, and this, by the way, for some of us, not everybody, right? Faith is first. So God comes first. Spouse comes second. Family comes next. And business comes fourth. And I think where we often find difficulty in life is when that balance is not honored. Exactly as you said, Joey. Thank you. Michelle.
Hello, Coach.
How are you?
I'm doing good, actually. I'm outside enjoying the beautiful weather, and I have a lot to say on this subject.
I somehow knew that. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I don't want to take 2 hours.
We just so you know, we only have 17 minutes left.
Okay, I can do that. Oh gosh, everything is getting me. Everything that you're bringing my marriage back, like full force. I'm telling you, Coach. I can remember we compromised all the time. It was all the time. It was like, Michelle, okay, give an example. Michelle, I'm taking out $30 in our bank account. Is that okay? Sure. Or we'll say, no, wait till a couple of days or whatever. Like we talk about in regular conversation. I think I had more trouble compromising than he did, because I can remember when friends would ask me, can you take me to the store? But here's the problem. I don't drive. Guess who drives? My husband. So I automatically say yes without asking him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've done it. I don't know how many times. I would say maybe 50, maybe a little bit more. I didn't count them, because I kept forgetting to do that. Like, I always said yes to people, and that was my issue. That's another story, right? And he would say, why didn't you tell me first? I don't really want to take that person to the store. I'm the one that's driving. You know, you don't have your license. And I remember the last time we were in the car, I did it, and I realized, oh, wow, I didn't talk to him about it. I'm making him do something. And you know what? He did it for me. He never said no, but he did get angry. But we did compromise a lot about the house situation, the mortgage, the bills. The only thing that we didn't really compromise a lot, I mean, maybe just a little, but our individual lives, our individual dreams. Like, you know, I'll give you an example. Like, I have class at 10 a.m. or he had school at 6 o'clock or something, because that's how but he wanted his schedule and I had a different schedule. I guess it is compromise, I would think. But we said, do whatever you want, put your schedule that's good for you on your courses or your classes. But I think on serious matters that has to do with both of us, we have to compromise, you know, especially the money, buying a house. We had to compromise what we wanted, what we liked. It never happened. We wanted to buy a house, but we didn't. But compromise is important. It is. Don't just put someone on the spot. I did that. I put him on the spot, and it's not good. It's not good at all. And I learned about that. So it took me a long time to figure out that I wasn't doing it. It took, I would say, years, but he must have held it in. It didn't. I wish he would have told me earlier, but at one point I would say maybe 2 years, like maybe about 2 years before he died, is when he finally said stop, and I did. But it wasn't all the time that I asked him to do things like for the other people that wanted help. Like, he wanted to do things for me because he loved me, and he didn't compromise. He gave up a lot for me. He did, and I did too. But I'm not looking at myself. I know I gave up my life for him. I remember giving up, but he doesn't know I gave up. We don't know. We love each other. We give up things, but I don't really say it, or he doesn't say it because we love each other, you know, or I may give up something. I'll say, oh, I don't know. I'll give up buying this that I need. My husband needs it more. But he doesn't know that. I guess we said, I saw Norm sacrifice everything. I noticed it without him asking me, telling me he's sacrificing. But I seen it, you know, and I always thanked him for it. And yes, the wife, their spouse comes second before God. And my husband always said that. He always said that. Michelle, you are first priority, always. Your first priority before your kids, your first priority before my mother, anybody in school, and everyone, everything. And the same thing with me, other things that I was doing was important to me. What we did was we didn't give up our jobs. I didn't tell him to stop. Okay, stop school, stop studying, or we're forget it, because that was his dream. That's what he wanted. Never give up that what they really want to do. Incorporate that in your marriage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what real love is. And I guess that is compromise, right?
Amen.
You don't have to compromise and use words. That's what I think I'm saying.
Beautiful.
You always have to say it. I don't say, okay, let's compromise, let's do this. Sometimes you just say, okay, he wants to do that. I'm going to back off, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I mean, you can, and we did communicate and compromise also. So it's nonverbal and it's verbal. That makes sense. Sorry about my bingo.
No worries. It's all good.
So I'll leave it to there. I know I can say more. I can say a lot more. I'll stop right there, Coach.
No, it's good. I mean, Michelle, I'm going to invite you to come back tomorrow, because my guess is we're going to have this conversation for a couple of days. And Friday night, we'll really have some fun with it. So I'm excited, and I thank you for participating. And just wait. My idea is for tomorrow, and then for Friday night's discussion. Friday night is going to be the fireside chat about this same conversation. So
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I can't wait. Definitely.
So
all right. I'm really excited. Yes.
And I think
I'll be there, Coach.
Awesome. And I think we don't have enough of these conversations. We don't have enough conversations where people get up, because, my thought process is what if we got together and had this type of conversation and we shared about breakdowns, and then as a community, we came up with points of view and suggestions to restore integrity. Now, to me, that's going to move the world. That's a mic drop moment, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Matt, we're coming to you, Matt.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Coach Les, I really, there's a few things I admire about you. I feel like I want to say one of them right now, and that is, first of all, how joyous you are. Like when I come into the room, the frequency of your voice is so joyous, and you're sharing so openly, and you've got like a really high frequency going on. I love that. It's really engaging, and also the collaborative element of how you work. That concept that you had, like where we all get together and we bring different perspectives, and for me, what you call integrity, in my vocab, I might call wholeness. It just offers more opportunity for wholeness, greater wholeness. So I love those things. And thanks for inviting me up to speak. I just listening to the last share, I was thinking about a time, how long it took me into my marriage to realize that I wasn't putting my wife first. And I mean, after God, but in my human relationships, that I wasn't putting my wife first.
Yep.
I'm involved in a family business. Family businesses are complicated.
Woo! Matt, you just gave me a topic for an upcoming podcast.
Sure. Yeah. Family businesses are complicated. They're complex. There's lots going on. There's a lot going on. And I like that because, in any place where there's a lot of challenge going on, I know now better that the challenge I perceive is exactly what I'm receiving because I'm perceiving it. And that it's an opportunity for me to really get down to the root beliefs, the root beliefs that I'm maybe quietly believing in, and to expose them to my consciousness, to really bring them out in the open and go, oh, wow, I believe that I have to behave in this manner with my dad, or I believe I have to be obligated to this kind of action with my sister. Or when my sister explains something like this, I feel personally attacked. But that's a habit of mind. That's not true or false. It's a habit of mind that I instantly go to. So I find a huge amount of growth there. But I do remember the day that I finally figured out that I had been prioritizing my dad's feelings over my wife's needs. It was really amazing. I mean, what an incredible day. And it was probably 5 years after this incident had happened. I went to my wife and I said, darling, remember when you asked me this question ages ago and I got angry and I said, why are you trying to get in between me and my dad and all this kind of stuff? And she said, yeah. And I said, I finally get it. I didn't put you first. I was putting him first, and my worry about pleasing him before my my obligations or my commitment to you. And I really get it. I really get it now. She cried, and then she said, finally. But it was an awesome moment for me, and her, of course. And it does
an aha moment, Matt.
Yeah. Sorry, you broke up there, Coach. I missed what you said.
I said an aha moment.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was really great. And it was because I was I had a coach, and this kind of unraveled in my coaching. I was like, oh my goodness, it was part of my training. And so it was beautiful. It was beautiful. But also just on the thought of compromise, it's funny, when I was single, I used to say to myself, if only I had a partner. And then when I was partnered, I'd say to myself, if only I had, if only I was single, I'd have so much more freedom. And I think it's kind of interesting kind of interplay that can happen. When I find myself thinking that I'm limited in some way by any circumstance or anybody around me, then I know that my thoughts are offline, that they're out of alignment with what I would deem to be the highest good for everybody. That I can always find a reason why I'm not doing something or not achieving something that I think I want to achieve. And I've like fully done that, with my kids, with my parents, with friends, with anybody. And it's I mean, the beautiful thing about having a relationship that does have integrity is, or let's say vulnerability or trust in the higher intent. Like my wife and I rarely have like a big conflict. It's very, very rare. Wouldn't even say we've ever had a big conflict. Not that that's a good or a bad thing, but conflicts come, and when they come, it's amazing when we get back to the point of trusting each other's higher intention. I know she wants what's best for me, and I know that she really loves me. And that's in what she's expressing sometimes has nothing to do with me. And when she really trusts me and trusts in my higher intent, I can feel the energy change. And it's in those moments where we get to really expand and explore our individual and collaborative consciousness, of what's possible, of seeing things from a new angle, or understanding the opportunity that the conflict brings for real growth, as parents, as people, as community members, as human beings contributing, in our everyday life. So I just, those were the thoughts that were provoked by the last share, inspired by the last share. And, I think relationships are all relationships, but wow, what an awesome space to really discover some of the thoughts that I have, and thoughts that maybe I no longer need to have. But maybe I didn't know I believed them so firmly because they seemed like reality, not like perspectives of reality. And that's what I like about those things when everything falls apart. Or, like Napoleon Hill says, sometimes people hit rock bottom, and that's when they're introduced to their other self. I try to get to the other self without hitting rock bottom or trauma or everything falling apart. But, it is one way to get there.
Amen. Amen to that. Wow. Thank you so much for your share. Really appreciate the provoking thought behind what you have shared. I'm my mind is going crazy about talking because I've coached several family businesses. And so I am super excited to have that be a podcast for us to share and work, because I know, Sujata, you've had family business, correct?
Yes, lots of it.
Lots of it.
And I know not everybody may know Sujata's voice tones, but even with a cold, I can hear lots of it. So we're gonna have basketfuls of conversation. I'm really, this is gonna tickle me to have this. I love this. This is why I'm here. So Mark, thank you. Matt, thank you. All right, Sujata, do you want to say anything about what Matt shared?
No, I liked his honesty and of bringing to light sometimes that we prioritize others when we should be prioritizing our significant half. And it all boils down to family business. And we get caught up into, duty towards, I think, so-called duty towards parents, and then it becomes a parents versus wife. Sometimes it becomes wife versus children, or so many other relatives. So these things do affect the relationships, and not enough is said or talked about it in a rational manner where we understand each other's point of view. So it, as you said in the beginning, these things need to be talked about more often. I mean, there's so much of it there that one could talk about. So we have to take it to the next day. I loved all the shares.
Mm,
Coach, can I just 3 seconds?
of course, of
Just
course.
something, Sujata, you said there. I love this project or this practice actually of bringing things out in the open and talking about them rationally. The other thing that came into mind just when you were saying that is also with compassion and mercy, not only for other people but for ourselves. That sometimes, wow, we're really in the thick of it, and to really trust that the unconscious mind, with whatever programming it does have, with whatever information it does have, is trying to achieve the absolute best for us. And to really have that compassion and mercy for one another in exploring, what meanings we've assigned to things. But yeah, I agree. I think that's a fantastic. And Coach, tell me when the podcast is happening.
My guess is it's going to happen right after the finish of the relationship one that we're currently doing. So I know we're going to have plenty of information for the next 3 days, today, tomorrow, and Friday, for this particular conversation, and maybe even as soon as next week, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I think so, and I know as I say this will, Sujata will be jotting this down, going, okay, he's got next week planned. So, Matt, thank you so much, and I want to be mindful of our time. I know we've got 4 people to share still, so I'm gonna do my best to ask each of you to keep it between 2 and 3 minutes. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Ginger. And for those of you that just popped into the room, I did throw in the room chat the conversational environment today, husbands and how to honor our wives, and what that looks like with relationships. And I had mentioned talking about pies and cutting the pie in half. And Sujata and I both came up with the conversation of handing the whole pie to our significant other. We talked about a cup being half full and half empty. Which do you see it as? And if you're half full, that's optimistic. Half empty is pessimistic. And the opportunity when the cup is completely empty to be an opportunity for complete possibility to come out of nowhere. We looked at what's 50-50, and we've shared, you know what, in reality, we want to look at it as 100-100, not 50-50. So those are some of the things that we've chatted about so far. And with that, Ginger, I hand you the mic.
Oh, wow. I can't really speak to that, being single most of my life and very happily single. So when I bake a pie, I get the whole thing, and I'm just greedy that way. So
Now, wait a minute. You have how many kids?
what's that?
How many kids do you have?
4 that I know of.
Okay. Four. Well, as a woman, I'm sure hopeful that you know.
That could be my pickup line. Now you see why I'm single, okay?
There you go. So you actually have been maybe used to only having 20% of the pie.
No, they know better. No, it's just, I'm sorry. I missed most of this, but when I bake a pie, I bake a separate thing for them. We have different tastes. It's bizarre. So yeah, I'm just going to sit and listen before I turn everyone off on this subject. Okay.
You can't turn anybody off. It's all good because Jeanette, already, jumped ahead of you and said, I'm single. And, I blew that one out of the water. So, but I'll be gentle with you this time, Ginger, and not blow it out of the water, because we all have ways that we still are in relationships. I mean, Ginger, you have a relationship with me. You have a relationship with Ori. All right. So we all have these relationships. I didn't necessarily say that it was a marital relationship. I did say husbands. I get that. And, perhaps when I reword it for tomorrow's podcast, I will replace husbands with men and use that as the stroking point into the conversation. So I appreciate that, Ginger. And I will leave you off the hot seat, and I'll pass the hot mic over to Terry. Good afternoon, Terry. Uh-oh. Terry, are you there? Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Well, I can't speak right now.
Okay.
I'll pass it on over to Michael or whoever you call on next. And thank you.
You're welcome.
This room. Thank
you. You're very welcome. Michael, are you there? Michael, did you want to chime in on this? He may not be near his microphone. Oh, maybe he'll be back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, Darby, it looks like it's coming to you. How are you, Darby? Uh-oh. Can anybody hear me?
I hear you, Coach.
Okay, Michelle. All right.
I listen attentively. I love this subject.
Thank you. It's all. You start to, as a moderator, you start to get a complex when you go to two people and nobody's answering. So it's like, uh-oh, am I the one that's not communicating? Anyway, with that, we've got a few.
Coach, this is Terry. Sorry for chiming in.
No, perfect. Go for it.
Just a couple of minutes that I have. I just wanted to say that when I look at the title, Against All Odds, I think of the movie, Against All Odds. And I remember crying in that movie at the end. I haven't seen it in a long time, but, with relationships, it doesn't really matter what kind of relationship that it is. If we're not transparent and vulnerable when we're getting to know that person and trust. We kind of go gradually, but once we're in that relationship, it's really 100%.
Woohoo!
Like you were saying.
Yep.
And we can't give partial. It's not fair to the other person. And then if we want 100% of them, to be able to share and for them to trust us, we have to be trustworthy as well. And so I just wanted to share that. And, I don't know if anybody remembers that movie, Against All Odds.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of things coming against the two of them who are very much in love, and family and people trying to keep them separated. And so, but it does require determination and a decision to be true and committed to that relationship that we're developing or maturing or have matured through the years. And relationships change, they go through the ups and downs. And it just requires us to be willing to be on that wave with the person. And, it's funny, a lot of times when one of them person's in the relationship is ready to give up, that's when the other one steps in and they're not ready to give up, and they're strong and they help lift up the person. I'm talking about things that we do together, like Matt was talking about the business, the family business, and just things that we do together. So that's the commitment, that's the determination. And yes, it's a lot of times it feels like it's against all odds. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Coach Les.
Awesome, Terry. Thank you. Let me just check. Hey, Darby, are you there? Are you able to come off of mute? Or if you are trying to come off of mute, it's not working. So you may have to pop out and pop back in. But with that, I'm going to hand the mic over to Sujata. Any closing thoughts or fun stuff?
No, I think it's so interesting that we need to continue talking about it tomorrow, since we are run out of time.
I think it's awesome. Yes, definitely. All right. Well.
Hello.
Darby. Yay. How are you?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Matt. Thank you for pinging me. Coach, good to meet you again. I haven't been on Clubhouse in a while. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you beautifully.
Okay, perfect. I kind of had to change my position. I'm driving. Well, I'm not driving anymore. I'm parked, but Against All Odds. That's I heard Matt and I heard Ginger a little bit, and I just heard Terry. And everybody, it's very nice to see you and hear your thoughts today. Mine kind of situation is changing at this point. I'm sorry if I don't sound very good. I have COVID right now, and I'm trying to recover. Sorry to hear that. It's just a thing. It's not that big a deal. You just have to take care of yourself.
Amen.
And it can be a big deal, but I don't believe that. Anyway, I go against all odds every chance I get. In fact, I'm working on completing a divorce right now. That is like 5 years in the making, which is good. And there's a lot of things that are going on that are good. I'm getting ready to start a new job as soon as I can get a negative test, so that's good too. And what really is significant, I think, in looking at Against All Odds is that it's not a husband or a wife or whatever. Matt was talking about that, but I didn't hear the beginning portion of Coach, what you were saying about what you put up for the husband and the wife and the giving and the it's any relationship, whether it's a friendship or a mentor mentee, a marriage relationship, friends, whatever the relationship you're in, you both should be giving to the other person. Because and what was said before about the 50-50 type deal, that never works. It will fail every time.
Every time.
If you're not willing to give 100% of your best to somebody else, you shouldn't be in a relationship with them, because it means you can't trust them. They can't trust you. You don't like them. They don't like you. Whatever the case may be, it shouldn't be that difficult. It just shouldn't be that difficult to have a decent relationship with somebody if you're a kind, caring, compassionate human being. And if you don't jive with somebody else, that's okay. That's completely all right. You don't have to be around them. And it's all right. I think that's what people are getting stuck on, is that, they have to please everybody and they have to do everything for everybody else. But really, the person that we take care of first is ourselves. Because without taking care of ourselves first, we can't accomplish anything. We can't surmount anything, and we can't overcome anything. And we certainly can't help anybody else if we don't take care of ourselves first. I think that's about all I should say right now. But thank you for having me. And Matt, thank you so much for pinging me.
Awesome. I love it.
Me too, Darby. Great to see you.
Well, thank you. And appreciate this conversation and appreciate what has gone on to this point. Sujata, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Sujata?
No, I'm good.
All right. And just for those of you that came in late too, Sujata has a book, if you check on her bio, called Against All Odds. And yes, there is the movie as well, which I know was being discussed. But the book is one of the books that we read out loud and chatted about and discussed after each chapter. And it will definitely make you cry in many different places. So I highly recommend that you take a look for that in her bio. Once again, Against All Odds. Go ahead, Darby.
I'm clapping. Thank you. I'm just clapping.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to double check. And we want to invite everybody back here tomorrow, same time. If you get here a little earlier, that'd be awesome. We start at 4 p.m. Central Standard, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And we'll be discussing another level of relationship where men are concerned, and looking at how we can continue to expand this conversation and expand the ability to create what I call equality in compromise and build phenomenal relationships. So for those of you that came to join today, if this is your first time in the room, thank you so much for being here. For those of you in the listening lounge, Pamela, Ishmaela, Shay, Michael, thank you so much. Darby, it's great to see you again. Terry, thank you as always for coming in. And even though you were not going to share, thank you for dropping a beautiful nugget. Ginger, thank you for being here. Matt, awesome to see you again. Michelle, thank you. Sister Jeanette, woo woo, always fun. I know Joey took off to get to work. And Sujata, thank you for being my co-host. We look forward to this and seeing you tomorrow. And at least in this room, one of the things that we can do is, because I can use my intro as my, this room will self-destruct in, and let's see if I can.